Okay, so here we are with the ugly duckling. So first thing I'd like you to do is to get an 11 by 14 paper. This is a mixed media paper, so it's a little sturdy. And then I want you to tape the edges so that it's about an inch. The tape is about an inch into the paper. And that'll create a nice border, and that's going to be important. Later on I'll explain. So this week's assignment is to literally create as ugly a painting as you can possibly do. And so I want you to use maybe colors that you normally don't like, or marks that you don't find appealing. Whatever you can do to create an ugly painting. Listen to music that you don't like or enjoy, then put that on in the background. If you're upset about something, then kind of bring up those emotions and just, have at it on the paper. However you can, whatever you can do to kind of create that atmosphere, to really create something that you find is not beautiful. Okay, so take a moment to gather your supplies. So you're going to pick out some of the paints that you don't particularly care for, the colors that you don't think really work together or they don't appeal to you. I have some gloss medium here as well. I have some Collage Pieces. They don't particularly do anything for me, so I have those here. I picked a few different types of a crayon type. This is like, it resists water, so it's not water soluble. This is water soluble, so this one is a little different. This is a Stabilo, this is a Caran d'Ache, and these are water soluble as well. And I have a magic marker. I have a tool that can just really create really jagged marks. I picked 3 brushes that I normally don't like to use. So that's going to force me to create a mark that that won't appeal to me. I have a sponge to create some sort of messy mark making. I have some stamps that I'm just going to place all over the place. Here's another one. So part of this is just, I also picked out some oil pastels. And when you use a lot of oil pastels with acrylics, you're mixing water with oil. So usually the oil pastel is going to resist the water, the acrylic paint, and sometimes that can actually create a nice effect, but it can also create an ugly effect. So that's my intention today. So that's the preparation. Okay, these are all sort of colors and things that don't really appeal to me, and I'm just gonna enjoy having fun with the idea of being in the moment, doing whatever I feel like doing on the paper, and the intention is to create something ugly. Okay, here we are. So I'm going to start off really with just cleaning my palette knife that I was using to put the paint on my wet palette right on the page. So I'm not even thinking, I'm just cleaning off my palette knife. So we're just going to start. I'm going to start with the magic marker and just put marks down. Right, these marks are, just very carefree and not really thinking about anything. Kind of doing it with a I don't care attitude, right? So that was a thicker mark. I'm going to use the other side and do a thinner mark. Maybe this time I'll just scratch it in and go over the tape. Don't stop at the border. You don't have to. That's what the tape is there for. Grab maybe another pencil. This is a watercolor Stabilo. And I'm just trying to do like different types of movements, right? So sometimes my arms are really going up high and doing circles. Just a variety of things, but I'm not really trying to do anything, right? It's just whatever comes. Got a couple more of the Caran d'Aches. These are more like the waxy kind that resist the water. If you ever watch a child paint, which I had the privilege of watching recently. They're just very carefree and they're just in the moment and they don't judge what they're doing. It's just fun. It's just the experience. For them, it's the actual experience that matters. And really, that's what it should be for us too. So we're going in, we're not trying to have like a goal. Like this is another water soluble crayon. It's called Art Graph. And these are actually made in Porto, Portugal, which I'm from. So I like the idea that these come from there. They're really cool. It was a factory that used to be owned by this family that made tailor chalks for tailors. And, you know, over time, they weren't producing as many of those because not many people were sewing. So they actually changed their model to creating things for artists, which I think is pretty cool. So my fingers are pretty dirty right now, so guess what I'm going to do? I'm just going to wipe it on the paper. That creates another mark, right? It's a lot more subtle, but I'm just basically wiping it on the page. Okay, so now I just want to see, let's see what the white does. If I put the white one down, what's that going to do? Okay, now I can get into the paints. Actually, before I do that, I want to put some of the stamps on there. So it's starting to really look like a mishmash, right? Okay, let's get some paint on there. Okay, so it's dried a little bit. It's not totally dry yet. It's a little tacky, so I'm going to try to carve some of these lines into it with this tool. Yep. It's dry enough that it pokes through in some areas, but not others. Okay. And now we can start maybe adding some of the collage pieces. And I'm just going to tear some of these. These are just pages from magazines. And just tear it. And we need a brush to apply it. Just put, doesn't matter, right? I'm not even thinking. I get caught sometimes and I start to think, but I don't want to think because this is an ugly painting. So I'm just going to put it right there. So glass medium is basically just, it's the material that actually the acrylic paint is made of without any pigment. And you can get this kind of medium as matte or as gloss. That's up to you, whatever you prefer. I prefer to use gloss. If at the end I want to produce something that's more of a matte feel, then I'll just finish with one layer of a matte coating. So So I'm just going to put a few more pieces. So you just want to coat the surface with enough glass medium that's going to hold the piece. Doesn't matter if the glass medium goes into the painting beyond the actual piece. It doesn't matter because you can always cover it afterwards to make everything look cohesive if you don't like different sheens all over the place. But again, today's effect is about creating an ugly painting, so we're not too worried about that. All right, let me just clean off the brush and then I'll put it in the water. Okay, so I'm going to tear off a little bit of this sponge. Okay, let's see. What about if I do this? Smear it. And you go right over the, excuse me, the collage piece. It doesn't matter. So remember, this exercise, like the other ones, give yourself 30 minutes and no more. Because that forces you to work quickly and it forces you to think less. And this exercise especially, it doesn't really matter, right? Because you're trying to make something ugly anyway. So you can really feel free to do whatever you want to. Okay, so now that you've done the 30 minutes and you're done with the first part of this exercise, I want you to, after it dries, to look at different areas really closely. And I want you to try to identify any spots, any areas that you actually like. Even if they're just small little marks, or maybe it's a color next to a different color. Whatever it is, I want you to sort of identify those areas. Maybe it's like the texture. So for me in this painting, as I'm looking around, let's see what catches my eye. I like those marks that I thought I wasn't going to like with that tool that scraped lines into it. I like how they show through. See right there? I like that. I like how this color shows up with the black. Mix of teal and green and the wispy black lines. I like that. I like this black mark on the left right here. That's interesting to me. And the texture right there. That's interesting texture. And that right there. So at this point, I want you to take another, say, 30 to 40 minutes after you've identified some areas that maybe you do like. Parts of it may appeal to you. Perhaps you learned something from the exercise that you never noticed and realized before, that you can bring into paintings that you actually really want to create. And so at this point, I want you to look at the painting and we're going to try to highlight those areas that you do like. And one way to do that is just to take white or an off color of white, or even black if you want to, but usually I prefer white. And we're going to paint around it and just highlight those areas. And this time we're going to use things that we like. So this brush is one of my favorites, so I'm going to be using that to create the marks. it's metaphorical, right? It's like our life. It has layers. We have a history. We have ancestors. We have cultures. And so all these layers in a painting correspond to life. Our life is not just, one-dimensional. We're a product of the people that raised us, the people that taught us, our friends, our experiences. And that's what an abstract painting especially is about. It's about all the layers. It's about the ugly stages and the pretty spots. And it's being able to appreciate certain areas of our lives despite the rest of it not being so pretty. But in the end, when we do appreciate those areas and we focus on them and identify them, we say, I felt good when I did that. When I'm around this individual, she makes me feel good, or he makes me feel good. When we bring our awareness to the parts of our lives that actually bring joy, then we can enrich the rest of our life. Because, being a human being, part of it is knowing that we will experience stressful times and losses and challenging moments. But that's why we have to create these moments of creating opportunities that we can feel joy, that we can remind ourselves that it's not all bad, that allow us to funnel our emotions and help us to process those difficult times in a way that is healthy, is not reactive, and that allows us to then handle the challenging moments of life better. So I'm going to work on this for another 15 minutes or so, and then after it dries, I'm going to pull back the tape and I'm going to show you the finished product. What I hope that we've learned from this exercise is that we can't avoid the ugly in life. We can't avoid the challenges that are going to come our way. That's just part of life. But life also has lots of joy and beautiful moments. And it's up to us to decide whether we want to just focus on the ugly, or we want to bring our awareness to what brings us joy, to how grateful we are for the people in our lives, or for the work that we have, or for whatever is, before us at any particular moment. So what we need to do is first accept that life brings us challenges. It's part of life, right? Sometimes, not always, but sometimes we have to play the cards that were dealt. We have to make the best of what we have before us, right? In the midst of the darkness, we have to look to the stars. And I know that sounds a little gimmicky, but it's true. So we are going to go through some dark times, but we have to, in those moments especially, it becomes even more important that we try to identify things that make us smile, even if they're small things. Whatever brings you joy, you have to practice bringing your awareness to it. But our brains are primed to look for danger. So we more easily see the things that are unpleasant. We more easily notice the things that make us sad than we do the things that bring us joy. And so it becomes an activity that we have to participate in. We have to make ourselves practice looking for those joyful moments. And that's going to be different for everybody. And that's why you have to practice doing it. So create opportunities for joy. Learn from your mistakes. And this goes with taking risks, right? We want to take reasonable risks. Obviously you don't want to go jump off a cliff, but I'm talking about reasonable risks that push you beyond your comfort zone so that you can create opportunities to learn. Learn something that you didn't know about yourself before, and about how you experience life and what brings you pleasure. So in order to discover those things, more often than not, we have to take those risks. You know, travel to some place that you're unfamiliar with. Talk to someone that you never have spoken to before. That's metaphorically what this painting exercise was about, right? To intentionally create the ugly and then pull back the tape and identify those areas within the ugly painting that actually it wasn't so bad, right? There were spots that you could appreciate. Working on them and embellishing them and improving them, you actually created a snippet metaphorically in life that wasn't as bad as you thought. So learn from your mistakes, because we learn more from our mistakes than when we do things well. So we expect to make mistakes. We're going to learn from our mistakes. We're going to keep taking reasonable risks. Accept the challenges in life. It's part of life. Sometimes we have to play the cards that we're dealt. In the midst of the darkness, look to the stars. Create opportunities for joy. Learn from mistakes and take risks. Right? So there's no such thing as an ugly painting, because the experience itself was freeing. It allowed us to be loose and to just express what we were feeling in the moment. Afterwards, we could actually appreciate what we created, and we focused on the areas that actually weren't so bad. We embellished those areas, and then we step back and we can look at the painting as a whole and say, you know what? It wasn't as bad as I thought. But if we approach life in a way that we expect perfection, we're never going to be able to enjoy it, because life is not perfect. It will never be perfect, the same way that a painting is not perfect, and it will never be perfect. And so we have to enhance it and embellish it.